Well, good morning, everyone. Hopefully, this is the merriest day of all for you, no matter where you are in life or location. So, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, etc., etc. This is Mazske Finance coming to you from South Florida at the moment. It's a little chilly today, too. Yes, anyway, December 25th, year 2022. Happy holidays to all. Merry Christmas. So, with that being said, I want to talk to you about those special moments in time. Those moments in time. They're parts of a piece of a larger puzzle. That larger puzzle is your life. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Your life. All right, so there's moments and times. And what I do on this channel is I share stories, I share experiences, I share thoughts, sometimes opinions, dreams, goals, etc. I'm trying to help you all out in some fashion. Okay? And hopefully my channel has done that. All right? I do hope I'm helping you out in some fashion. I've talked about a lot of different things on this channel. Stock investing, mutual fund investing, crypto investing, oil drilling, mineral rights acreage, art, wine, investing, real estate investing. I've talked about health topics. I've talked about technology. I've probably talked about science a little bit. I've talked about nature. I've talked about docks and pools. I've talked about exercise. I've talked about a lot of different things. So I'm going to talk a little bit about moments in time. Where are you at in this moment in time? Please put it in the comments below. Don't tell me exactly where you're at. Just give me a general location. Where are you at in this moment in time when you're watching this video? Please put it in the comments below. And while you're at it, click the thumbs up button and please subscribe to my channel. All right, I'm going to tell you some of my moments and times that stood out. See, all of us are born at some point in life, right? That's a big moment in time. Unfortunately, or maybe it's fortunately, we don't remember those moments in time, do we? What is your earliest memory? 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old? Somewhere in that range. We're all a little different in what we remember. If you had a traumatic event not so traumatic it messes you up, but still traumatic in a way, when you're the day before your third birthday, you might remember it. But if you just had a normal life and nothing big happened, nothing out of the ordinary happened, maybe your earliest memory is 4. I don't know. I'm just gone by what I know up here, what my kids have told me, what the missus has told me, what other folks have said, and I'm just kind of guessing there. So anyway, with that being said, big moments of time for me and for all of you is when we're kids, somebody has helped to shape and mold our lives. Maybe you have children, you're shaping and molding your child's life. I encourage you to read to them, read stories to them. I read to my kids when my wife was pregnant. I wanted them to hear my voice. I wanted them to hear a story when they were little babies. I can remember my oldest son, this was in Maine, we had a 2-story house we rented, and we had a changing table upstairs. And I was reading a story to my son when his diaper needed to be changed, and the missus carried him upstairs while I followed along reading the story. She's on the changing table changing his diaper, and I'm still reading a story to him. The last time I remember reading a story to my 2 boys, they were both probably teenagers. The youngest might have been 12, 11. That's not a teenager per se. It was the Jungle Book. I remember reading that story to them, and I think they fell asleep. I think that's the last time I actually read a story to them. I might have read a paragraph to them or something like that. But anyway, since then. But anyway, I digress. So as we go through time, like when I was growing up, of course I had teachers. I had my parents, my mom, my dad. I'm not going to cover all that. I'm not going to cover something else either. But I got an idea of joining the Navy. I'll tell you one quick story. I worked landscaping. I'm going to cover something in a future video, perhaps this week. I'm going to tell you about my annual income going back to when I first started working and paid a taxable annual income up until I retired, or even after I retired. I'm going to run through it all for you, okay? So if you think, why is Mazske a multimillionaire? He made the big bucks. I want to break it down for you exactly how many bucks I made. And I want you to think to yourself, if he could do it, why can't I? I'm pointing to you. Why can't I? Okay? Because I'm going to share all that with you. All right? So, but I was standing on a job site one day, landscaping, and my back hurt. I stood up a little bit. I stretched it. I had a shovel. It was dirty. It was muddy. It was probably a spring day or maybe it was a fall day. It was mud, and I just kind of held my shovel and looked around. I didn't say anything. I had long hair. I probably didn't shave. It was probably like 3, 4, 5 days of growth there. Long hair, dirty, muddy. And I looked around at the group I was with, and I was probably 18 years old. And I was the youngest guy there. There was a guy there, I think that was 30-ish. And there's guys in their mid-20s. And it hit me at that moment. It was like a little light bulb went off. It hit me. It's like, what am I doing? If my back hurts when I'm this age, how am I going to be doing it when I'm that age? How am I going to be doing it if I live to be 40, how am I going to be doing it then? I got to do something. I didn't know what to do. I didn't really get along with my parents. I didn't know what to do. I didn't have anybody to talk to. I didn't want to know what to do. I graduated high school. I liked reading. I liked education. I had wanted to go to college, but didn't have any money. But by that time, I was working. I was making a pretty good paycheck working, landscaping, still living at my parents' house. I was spending all the money. But I started taking 2 college classes in a community college. One was Dundalk Community College. One was Essex Community College. I would get off work sometimes in my dirt-covered clothing, boots, and I would get my car and I would drive down. Each college was 30 minutes, 40 minutes away, and I would drive down and sit in class. One was an English class. I forget the other one. I forget what my grades were. I made it through. I forget what the grades were. But I remember thinking, I got to do something else. So, and I'm sorry, I don't want this to become a long video, so I want to jump through a couple things. Anyway, I ended up joining the Navy. All right, when I was 19 years old, 19 and a half years old roughly. My birthday is in September. I went into the Navy in March, 1987. All right. And when I went to the Navy, I went to Great Lakes, Illinois. I went to boot camp. My older brother was in the Army. He gave me one piece of advice. He said, keep your mouth shut. Listen to what they say. Keep your mouth shut. I did that. I didn't talk hardly at all. Yes, sir, no, sir, that kind of thing. Yes, I said that, but I did not converse. I just, for the most part, I mean, I chit-chat a little bit, I guess. But I stayed out of trouble, kept my nose clean. And went to, I was becoming an electronics technician. I went to electronics A school. It was across the street from RTC. RTC is Recruit Training Command, Great Lakes, Illinois. And we graduated. Other kids were going to maybe a 1-month A school in San Diego or a 4-week crypto school somewhere or this kind of school or whatever. Or they're going to become a boatswain mate. They're going out to the fleet. They're going to Norfolk. They're going to Guam. They're going somewhere. And I was part of a group, and we went across the street to Naval Training Command, Great Lakes, Illinois, and started BEE, Basic Electricity and Electronics, self-paced. And I don't know why I did this, but my goal was to burn through that school. It was self-paced. There were people that were there when I started, because it was self-paced, that were still in that school when I finished that school. Because I just burned through it. I was like, this is easy. I learned about transistors, resistors, capacitors, inductors, those sort of things. I would ask questions sometimes. I would get stuck on basic circuits, and because you had to study yourself. And I would go up to the instructor and I'd be like, I don't get it. And he drew me a diagram sometimes, that transistor, and say the wire, it breaks right in there between the resistor and the transistor. What happens? He'd explain it to me. So I made it through BEE and I went on to ETA school. That was basic electricity and electronics technician A school. That was not self-paced. That was structured. And I realized then I should have taken my time more so and really learned this stuff. But when I got into that school, I learned how to study. I never studied in my life in high school. If I showed you my high school report card, it was back here. I got it in a book right now. When I graduated, when I was younger, I'll tell you one thing. When I was in elementary school, I took those standardized tests. I have a variety of tests from different years in different subjects, math, primarily science, that my grade, meaning I was this percentage better than everyone else took the test, I was at the 99th percentile in different categories, or the 97th, or the 96th. I had something up here, okay? I had the natural ability. I was born with it. My parents, etc. So anyway, but I never studied. And then in high school, my grades just, I went down. I barely graduated. I about quit high school in my senior year. I stayed out for a week in my senior year, and a buddy came to my house, and it was like me, he was a partier. And he came to me, he talked some sense into me. He's like, you can't do this. It's like February of my senior year. He's like, you can't do this. You got to go back. It's a couple more months. And I was like, I hate school. I want to be done. But I went back, and I graduated. 17 years old when I graduated high school. So anyway, I was in the Navy, electronics A school, and kids were rocking out. It was hard, and the rumor was when you rocked out, you failed, you flunked out. You got sent out to the fleet to be a boatswain mate, and you'd be painting ships. And I was like, I didn't want to paint ships. I was working landscaping. I don't want to do manual labor. So I kept on plugging away, studying. And I had a goal of graduating top of my class, because whoever graduated, kids would be in a higher ahead of us, and they get set back because they'd be flunking a module and they'd be put back in errors. So we pretty much maintained 30 to 5 students in that class. My goal was to become number one, because however many kids were in the class when you graduated, they had that many orders. 35 kids, 35 orders. Number one ranked student picked the top order. So if you were at the bottom, you got whatever the last one was, and figure all the good ones that people thought were the good ones were picked first. So I was plugging along, and I became friends somewhere along the way with a guy from the Thailand Navy. I think it was Navy. He was military. He always come to school in uniform, from Thailand. And Thavisak Peeble was his name. And him and I, we sat next to each other at some point, and we became kind of buddies. He was older than me. I was probably 20 at that time. He was older than me. And we would chit chat, and he told me about he was older. He might have been pushing 30-ish. And he would tell me stories about places he had been and things he had done. And one day, as we were counting down to the final weeks, I don't remember exactly what week it was, but it was getting close to the end, and the career counselor came in and said, sorry for the interruption, I need to talk to the class. And he said, I'm looking for 2 volunteers. And immediately it flashed across my mind something I learned in boot camp. Navy, acronym, NAVY, military is big on acronyms. Never again volunteer yourself, NAVY, never again volunteer yourself. I didn't raise my hand. And he kept talking. He said, I need 2 people to go to volunteer to put in for duty in the country of Panama. And you need to have some kind of background in Spanish, taking it somewhere. You don't have to be able to speak it, but taking it in school at some point, high school, taking it Spanish. And if you're interested, on the next break, come on down to my office, down at the end of the hall, and let me know. All right? So Thavisak was sitting next to me, and he's like, Mazske, you got to put in for that. And I was like, where's Panama? And he's like, you don't know where Panama is? And I was like, I know the Panama Canal. He's like, all right, on break, let's go out. I'll show it to you on the map. Because we had a big old world map in the hallway out there, which I'd stand out there sometimes every break just looking at it. Looking at the big old world. And he came out one day, and there's Panama right down there, and he talked about it. He had been there. Remember, he had been around. He had been in the Navy. He had been around. And he told me about it, different things. And he mentioned beaches and mountains and tropics. And he was like, you got to go. And I was like, I think you're right. So I walked on down to the career counselor's office. And there was 3 people sitting in there. And as I walked in, opened the door, career counselor like, you want to go to Panama? And I said, yes, sir. Let me see here. All right. Tell you what. He goes, you're, out of these 4 here, you're now 4 in there. He goes, you're the highest ranked. You get the highest ranking in class. And so you get the top school, because you'll get it. And Tracy, you'll get the 2nd spot. And he goes, what I'll give you is the calibration school, Denver, Colorado. And Tracy got a crypto school in Georgia, I think it was, 4 weeks long. My calibration school was like 3 or 4 months long out in Colorado, Denver. So I was like, cool. I now know where I'm going, I guess. Hopefully that's a good decision. So anyway, when I went to calibration school in Denver, I got a 10-speed bike. I rode all over. You can look at it up online if you want. I was stationed at Lowry Air Force Base. Lowry Air Force Base is now closed, but you can still figure out where Lowry Air Force Base is in Denver. My longest bike ride, I started at Lowry Air Force Base at my barracks and rode through the city. I didn't know where I was going. We didn't have GPS back then. We didn't have the internet. I just rode. I was just exploring. And I rode and saw signs for Golden, Colorado. And I remember thinking, Golden, Colorado, that's where Coors beer is brewed. And so I went in that direction. And then I saw signs for Lookout Mountain. I was like, okay, Lookout Mountain sounds like a good place to go. So I rode up this mountain, Lookout Mountain. When I got to the top, I was tired, but that's where Buffalo Bill is buried. And I saw his grave, and he was buried there. And I remember I was by myself. Families were there, vacationers, and that sort of thing. And I was just by myself. Finished. Rode back down the mountain, passed some cars on the way down because I could go faster going down. And cars were braking on curves, and I would just zip around them. Made it back. So anyway, life goes on. I went to the country of Panama. In Panama, then, multiple things happened. I was stationed there for 2.5 years. We had an invasion operation, Just Cause, but I had a roommate at one point, Tim. Tim shared a room with me. We had 2 different beds, and then he would lay there in bed at nighttime sometimes and talk about if he had money, he would invest it in mutual funds. I was frugal. I was saver. A saver is not an investor. It triggered something. Tim would travel to South America a lot with the job. He wasn't around a lot, so I had a room to myself. But when he was there, he talked about mutual funds. So I started going to the library. I love libraries. And Money Magazine and Bloomberg, whatever it was, a couple magazines. I started reading about mutual funds. Piked the interest. I put a little bit of money. I ended up dropping. Got more time in the Navy where I got a re-enlistment bonus. And I had a little bit of money, so I put like $1,000 in this mutual fund, $1,000 in that mutual fund, something like that. And I learned about IRAs. We had traditional IRAs back then. And this was while I was in country Panama. So anyway, while I was there, I ended up getting married. I ended up getting a 3-year tour in Puerto Rico. I ended up going up to the state of Maine, up near Canada. My oldest son was born in Puerto Rico. But that mutual fund investing continued. When I got out of the Navy, I didn't have any more money to keep adding in. While I was in the Navy, I kept putting like $50 a month into each mutual fund, I think. By the time I got out, money got tight. I got out in 1996. I took a job in business. I moved to Southwest Virginia, down near Tennessee, and took a job out of North Carolina intentionally. I worked part-time. I worked a little bit in Southwest Virginia at a drug and alcohol rehab center. And I was like, I can't keep working here. It was third shift. And I took a job out of Mount Airy because I got a bachelor's degree in business while I was in the Navy. And I had a high GPA. And I said, I want to work in business. And there was no business in Southwest Virginia. I mean, what was I going to do? There was no jobs there. So I took a job at Mount Airy, North Carolina, Leonard Buildings and, I forget what their title was. But Leonard sent me around a variety of states. I would have to drive. They were based out of North Carolina. I'd go different places in North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, Norfolk, Kingsport, Raleigh, Kannapolis, North Carolina, I think it was. But anyway, I was down in Raleigh, North Carolina, and the vice president called me one day and said, all right, we think you're done with your training. It was a management training program. Called me up and asked me what I want. Shenandoah Valley in Virginia, because by the time he knew my mom was sick and she was dying, and she was up in Maryland. And that would get me closer back. So I said, yeah, I'll decide to go there. And I ended up going there, and I was managing a business, and I was working. My easy 5-day-a-week job was a 6-day-a-week job, and they told me I could get off early on Saturdays, but I had to be there when the delivery came in. The delivery came in at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, usually, or 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock on a Saturday. So I worked 6 days a week, and I was making pretty good money. I think that year I was on pace, making $45,000 a year, which is pretty good money back then. But then I was reading the newspaper one day and saw an ad in there for a police department. And I applied. And because it said 2 things in that ad. College preferred, Spanish speakers encouraged to apply. I had a college degree. I spoke a little Spanish by then. I applied. I got hired. And once I got hired, I was driving home one day from checking in or whatever at HR. I had some paperwork in my car for 457 plan and pension benefits, and I said to myself, Mazske, you got to stick this job out. I regretted getting out of the Navy because I was like, I had a good career going, and when I got out, life got tough. It got tough. So I said, I'm going to stick this job out, and I did. I stuck it out through good times and bad times. I stuck it out for 20 years. During that time period, 1999, I was reading a book by Susie Orman because money was tight. I was trying trying to figure out how I could save money. In the back of one book, I read a link that was fool.com, a suggested links. Fool.com was the Motley Fool. I checked that site out, and I realized real quick, even us little guys can invest in individual stocks. This was in 1999. I sold my mutual funds, transferred them over to Scottrade and TD Ameritrade, I think it was. Started buying individual stocks, and didn't know what I was doing. And what happened in the dot-com crash? My stocks just, a little bit of money I saved through the 90s, and it was growing a little bit. I had about $16,000 in 2000 or so, and that $16,000 dropped down to 6, 7, maybe not even, it was under 8, $6,000 or $7,000. So it got cut in half. And as the 2000s went on, I learned how to invest in stocks. And from 2005 to 2018, I had 18% annualized return. I learned how to invest in stocks. Make a long story short, because it's getting long, I then, as the years passed by, I had become an investor, and I decided to jump into real estate, and I jumped. I didn't study. I didn't read a real estate book. I didn't watch YouTube, because YouTube was out by then. I jumped. I bought my first rental house, January of 2017. By December of 2017, I bought my second rental house. Somewhere along the way from January to December, I started looking online, found Bigger Pockets. And then from Bigger Pockets, I made contacts. I found other stuff. I read some real estate books that might be up there. I started looking at YouTube. I found One Rental at a Time, Michael Zuber. I was interviewed on his channel in December of 2018. But then I didn't know this then. I didn't have a plan then, because you've heard me talk on my channel about going from 0 to 25 rentals in 4 years. I didn't plan that out. I bought 2 houses in my first year, just worked out. One in January, one in December. Next year in 2018, I bought a triplex in May, 3 units, and I bought a house in Alabama in August. So 4 units that year. To the first, I had 6 units. I still didn't plan out I want 25. I didn't have any plans. And then 2019 came along, and I bought more, but I started getting a plan then. By that time, I met Helicopter Caleb and talked to him about, I think I met him before I bought my first rental house, I think, or around the time I bought my first one maybe, and tried to mentor to him. I tried to mentor to folks in the Navy, in a kind of, sort of, not really, but no one listened to me about mutual funds, it seems like. And I was one of the young guys then, kind of. In the police department, I tried to talk to people about stock investing. No one listened to me. A couple people I started helping, and I did the work. I started buying their stocks for them, and they didn't want. They still haven't done it. They don't want to take the time to learn how to do it. It's crazy. Then when I started buying real estate, I talked to people about that. I helped a buddy I used to work with get started with real estate. I helped Helicopter Caleb. I helped him, Millennial Mike. By the time I met him, he had already had a duplex. He was house hacking, but I helped him as well. And that's my goal now, is to help you. This video has gotten long. Why am I doing this video? Am I trying to get my viewing hours up? Because you need so many viewing hours to get monetized. Is that my goal? You need so many subscribers to get monetized. Is that my goal? Am I doing it for money? Is that why I'm doing it? No, I'm not. Because when I get monetized, it's not going to be a lot. Just a couple dollars in the beginning. If I explode, if I was fancy dancy and exploded, then I might get big bucks. But I'm not going to get big bucks. Why am I doing this? I'm trying to share with you to get you to think. That's my goal with all of my videos. I say things at times that I want you to think. Think about your life. Think about your decisions. Think about the people you meet. For most of us in life, we work jobs and we have coworkers. For most of us, our coworkers are not investors. Not always, but for most of us. Maybe there is somebody there that's an investor, but they're quiet about it. You don't know it. So this channel is a way that you now know me. You now know the other YouTubers out there if you found their channels. We can mentor to you to help you get started. We can do for you what no one did for me. You know, as far as like painting a picture of everything to do. It's easy to buy stocks. Real estate is work. Again, I'll repeat it. It's easy to buy stocks. It's easy to look online. It's easy to learn about business. It's easy to find dividend paying stocks. Real estate is work. Real estate is stressful. But if you can handle the work and you can handle the stress, real estate can and should be, possibly for you, the fastest way to build wealth. What is wealth? With that being said, I'm going to talk a little bit about wealth, hopefully on Sunday night. I'm sorry. Hopefully on Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. I might go live. I'll talk a little bit about wealth, and you can ask me questions. So with that being said, I got to wrap this up. It's getting long. I'm getting hungry. So have a great day. Mazskes signing out.